You can say that again.
About
2 months ago?
Yeah, we were supposed to do the show 2 months ago. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Commodits podcast. My name is Ebak, and you're joining me here at the Scratching Post. We scratch that gaming itch, and of course, it is the last Tuesday in the month, and that means we're doing our podcast, which is the Commodits podcast, where I gather three of my friends, and we talk about, well, gaming and geek news, as well as offer our dense opinions upon the various things going on right now. And, you know, Pride's a thing. I want to see rainbows in that chat. We are all inclusive here. Yes. And we've just lost Doctor, I think.
No.
Yeah, no, I'm still here. My camera's fine. Well, something's going wrong with my systems today. It's not wanting to play ball, which is brilliant.
Well, that's what it is. Anyway, I'm going to just fade out the music right now as we switch over into the episode. So, hello everyone, welcome to the Commodits podcast. My name is Ebak. I'm going to introduce my regular guests here on the Commodits podcast, my co-host, Shadow Phoenix Rider.
Hello.
My secondary co-host, Lemming Russ. Done now.
Howdy, y'all.
And our guest,
sort of appearing in this film.
not appearing in this podcast, Mr. Doctor in the upper right-hand corner there, who is, or upper left, I should say, who is unfortunately having some technical issues regarding their webcam. Are you still with us in the voice chat, my good man?
Yes, I am still here. I might have to sort of like do a restart on this and maybe go without a camera tonight. It's one of those things, be a pain in the ass.
One of those things. I'm gonna have to get. In that case, I'm gonna have to get sorted out for any kind of like noise for when no one's around, because that just is a sad blank image right there. But we'll do. Well, it'll do for tonight.
You know those old broadcast interrupted.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need one of those.
I've always loved Back to the Future, and in Back to the Future the ride, there's a lovely bit where they have one of those, and it's Doc Brown in like a Indian headdress, you know. And I've always wanted to do that, but I thought it'd be a bit insensitive because of the such. So I never thought, but I always loved the look at that. But no.
Probably do one, but without the headdress.
Yeah, that's the. I should probably do some huh? You know, for what's going on. But yes, hello everyone, welcome to the podcast. We're talking Pride. Now, people were saying, wasn't Pride last month? Well, yeah. So
every month when you're gay.
That's true, but at the same time, with this podcast, should have actually gone out on the last week of June. Unfortunately, due to my being ill and and scheduling problems, unfortunately, we've had to delay the podcast to the point where we've actually lost June's episode. So we're now a month behind. It is what it is. These things happen. But no, it's been a rough month. It's been a hot month.
Yes, the last Tuesday was literally the hottest day in the UK's history. So you maybe you can excuse us for not streaming during then.
Yeah. Now I am going to basically talk because at the start of the podcast we tend to spend the first hour of the 2-hour show going into like the news. I am basically wanting to kind of shift the dynamic of the show a little bit, because you guys get the news from all kinds of places. You know, we all comment on the news. I think it'll be nice for us to kind of take articles and comment on it as we do. But at the same time, we're not a news podcast. We're not there to deliver the news to you. We're here to discuss the news. And so I kind of want... And besides, there's been a lot of news in the last couple of months. So we're going to basically cutting things down to the bare minimum. And Shadow had some ideas of how to be cutting that down. Although I'm not going to be throwing her under the bus. I don't want to throw her under the bus. She's a delight. Besides, I'd be more worried about the bus being damaged than I would be her, because... Damn it, have you seen her punch? She's...
Damned indestructible.
Yes. So...
I would be less worried about my punches and more worried about my kicks.
So we're going to have a quick fire round of news. Are you ready, everyone? So first of all... We have Diablo Immortal not launching in 2 countries because the current operation conditions these countries don't allow it, aka they don't allow us to monetize microtransactions. Next!
Basically, we have so many loot boxes. We got loot boxes for your loot boxes. Wait, we're not allowed to do them.
Next, from Activision. Activision reports that there's no widespread harassment at Activision, says Activision.
Well, Activision, you're certainly the best source of news.
Activision say there is no harassment in the middle of Activision-Blizzard. Say Activision-Blizzard.
Yes, although...
It's like, there is no bank robbery happening here, says man in bank holding gun.
Yes, precisely. I think that kind of weighs our thoughts on that. Activision Blizzard shareholders vote in favour harassment report despite the board's objections, which is positive things going out.
Woo!
DICE has no time for projects like Mirror's Edge as it is committed to doing Battlefield.
No, EA, why would you do this?
Let the talented developers develop something other
He's
than
back!
what you want. Yay!
Activision Blizzard CEO by Kotick is re-elected to the board, and the evil world continues to tick along as per normal.
Question: Who would we prefer in charge of Activision Blizzard? Bobby Kotick or Boris Johnson?
Do you know what? When you said that, I was like, "There's going to be a reference here."
I like to
considering this.
I'd like to suggest option number 3, Mr. Wile E. Coyote.
Actually,
right then. I'm going to leave this next piece of article because I think this is quite important for talk about. I think to just touch on it would be an insult, so we're going to move that to the bottom. The Quebec video games industry will be impacted by controversial language change, which introduces a bill in Quebec the aim for the bill 96 is to ensure that French is the main speaking language spoken everything from business to healthcare. The fear amongst people is that this industry is going to turn people away from working in Quebec because, people with the games industry tends to be a very Western thing, and Quebec is, Canada. It's just North America, and they are French Canada. That they are a French but also English-speaking nation as well. Although their heritage is important. Mostly at the same time, a lot of people go there because Canada is Canada, and start business there. I think it is going to have a negative impact upon the industry. It's sad. I understand it. I fully understand the bill. The bill makes sense from a cultural perspective. It's just going to result in a negative impact upon the games industry in that way.
As in the games industry is going to fucking abandon it.
Pretty much.
I mean, it's just like, I understand the reasoning behind it, but at the same time, if France is having difficulty stopping their children from learning English instead of French, how is a country other than France going to do that?
Yeah.
Difficult. And it also cuts your talent pool.
And you've got this like stumbling block now where you've got you throw that in the mix, and then you can no longer give the job to potentially the best person to do the job because of a law like that, which kind of seems backward in coming forwards, really, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Next piece, of course, it always stings when that game is a 10, but it's made by EA. EA got roasted earlier in the month when they put a similar post, which they're a 10, but they only like playing single-player games. Again, trying to roast people who play single-player games, as if trying to push the agenda of that multiplayer games are the only thing people should be playing. Not because they make money or anything, or because they have constant engagement, which cause them to make and rake in hundreds of thousands of millions of cash a year, but because it's single player games. Who play single player games?
Something like the development studios that were working on the single player games that EA was paying them for.
Yeah.
Yes, got completely ratioed there by people, and didn't even apologize. They said, we'll take the L because single player games actually makes them an 11. Come on, EA, just admit that you fucked up and don't try and make it funny.
You goofed, move on.
You goofed, move on. It was a poor joke and a poor attempt at an apology, if I'm honest. That's just my opinion.
Actually, I don't even think it was an apology. I wouldn't take that as an apology.
Not at all. Activision Blizzard staff plans fresh walker after recent attacks on civil liberties, which we'll be getting into a bit later, I guess, in terms of the impact of a certain bill.
we're trying to tiptoe around it, but we're gonna have to go in there. We're gonna have to go in there at some point.
Yes. Unfortunately, E3 is dead. It's dead, Jim. There's going to be no Monster of the Week, no resuscitation. EA is pretty much dead and buried. Unfortunately, EA said goodbye this year as they were looking to restructure. Now, what we mean by restructuring is that they're looking to reassess where E3 stands in the landscape. Now, unfortunately, that is media's talk for effectively, we're not sure what happens. These days, most companies are doing their own things anyway, so I think it was inevitable this was going to happen.
Fuck it, let's just go and watch whatever it is Devolver comes up with every year.
Yeah.
They nail it every single year.
Yeah, because companies are just like, wait, we don't need to wait. We can just do it whenever.
Yeah.
And also, it's probably better because then they can just sit and wait for when they actually have news. Like, I mean, and Nintendo's been doing that since the Direct's a bit of thing. So,
Hideo Kojima unfortunately was linked with the assassination of and the former Prime Minister of, I think it was Prime Minister of Japan.
Yeah, former Prime Minister of Japan. Yeah.
Which, effectively due to some idiotic people in the French papers decided to post his name or his picture attached to the story, and that's a bit of a shit show. Always check your facts.
A prominent world leader is assassinated, and you're going to try and pin it on a popular video game designer.
I don't think it was. I don't think it was malicious. I just think they took a random picture and didn't source check it.
Yeah, there's plenty of pictures of the actual dude doing it.
Yeah, and also, I'm just gonna say, like, it was a far right French newspaper that did it, not the actual papers, because the far right are a bunch. They can't think. They can only project.
To an individual, the far right seems to just be single note. I don't know how we're actually managing to convince people to follow us. It's like it's ridiculous.
In some awesome news, a developer turns his Future of Gaming talk into a surprise attack on NFTs and blockchain, an event which is sponsored by NFTs and blockchains. To their credit, the event organizers let him continue his talk despite objections by the sponsors, which I think it's great. It's a case of, okay, the sponsors don't like it, but freedom of speech, it's
Oh no, they're saying the true things about how shitty our blockchain is. No.
Yeah, this thing we developed, which destroys the environment but makes certain people loads of money, is not doing well. Oh no.
An article from Georgia State News Hub states that a study shows that video game players show enhanced brain activity, decision making, and other domains. This is nothing new. We've kind of seen reports before that gamers tend to show more problem solving skills than most people.
Isn't it also that thing of it's also activating the brain as well? It's getting those parts of the brain working, isn't it? It's that sort of section of it.
Yeah, the main part of the study was to figure out. It's mostly focused on the hand-to-eye coordination that gamers seem to develop, because it's mentioned in. I've linked the paper to. I've linked to the paper and also the article describing the paper, and the article's author had I think it was a weak eye or a lazy eye, and he was actually prescribed to play some video games, and it strengthened his eye movements. So he was doing a test to try and figure out exactly how it works. The study's not like it has a huge sample size. It's just under 100, which is a bit.
I mean it's a very small sample size.
Yeah, but it's definitely in the right direction, kind of thing, and it will be useful.
Yeah, they can always then expand on that sample size and go, well, we just want to test that our findings are actually true by taking another, say, 100, 200, 300 sample size and validate the results that way.
Yeah, and I'll just quickly say it does correlate with other findings that when surgeons are training for laparoscopic operations, which is when they do, well, basically they have their instruments on rods that they just make tiny incisions into a patient's body instead of the big what diddly. They have found that surgeons that have played video games or train on video games tend to be better at the laparoscopic surgeries than surgeons that don't. So, interesting stuff.
I'm
No,
wondering what video games they actually train with, because I don't think Surgeon Simulator is a good one.
no, no. It's-
No, they have their own proprietary software, I think.
I suppose it's also that thing as well. If you think about it, it's not necessarily the hand-eye. In this case with the surgery, it's more of the touch. It's more of the feel. Because
it is.
if you're doing, I mean, like say if you're doing those normal operations using normal instruments, it's the touch. You can feel the pressure. If it's all those ones on, going from a longer distance, you've got less of that natural touch. So it would be like having a control or something like that in your hands. That's it's a different kind of movement.
Yeah, it's very interesting because they're using the instruments on rods and watching a video screen while they're doing it. So it's quite a learned skill, and video games can help with that.
Yeah, in fact, it's quite fascinating. I mean, this thing which is an entirely different topic to get onto, but the idea of, we're so used to video games, and yet someone who is not someone who's never picked up a video game in their life, they don't have that kind of experience of this does this, this does this. So often you'll see them like push the sticks all the way without thinking which direction they're going in and such, because they've not yet developed the idea of like, okay, the association of like gentle pushes and this and hand movement. It's a bit like when you're learning a new game. Even though you're learning a new game, you're not learning how to play a controller for the first time. You're just having to reassociate controls, but you still have the idea if I push gently, if I push here, and general idea where to keep your thumb. I suggest people get someone who doesn't really play video games, and just, if they are willing, of course, set them down and just get them a simple game, 2D game ideally. Just get them to see if they can just move about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite surprising the amount of muscle memory that gamers develop that is just so innate in a way after a while. And you don't realize, because we've been playing games for at least a decade or more. Like we've developed this. This is natural to us as breathing. But to somebody else, we don't remember how we learned these things. It's quite remarkable.
We don't really learn. It's something you just kind of gain over time. It's something which can't be taught.
Yeah, but it is a learning thing, because your body's having to learn the specific pressures that you know.
I guess in that way I associate learning as in like being taught, whereas it's not really being taught. It's something you're learning to pick up through experience. But yeah. Moving on, next news article. John Rosatelio, who's the current head of Unity Technology CEO, he basically has said the devs who shun monetization are pure brilliant, as being sarcastic, effectively saying that people should be considering monetization right from the get-go. No, they shouldn't.
No. He was a former EA CEO as well, so
that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and then when
all I'm going to say on that though is when you're saying that, I think as well is if they're going to if they are going to put it in the games, that should be from the start process of we're going to put microtransactions in it, rather than the 11th hour going we're going to stick loot boxes and stuff in here to make extra money as an afterthought, because then that doesn't go down well, especially we do all the press talk of saying there isn't going to be any loot boxes, and then on day one, where the hell have these come from?
In kind of sad news, which shows just how far someone can fall, CD Projekt stock is worth a quarter of what it was before Cyberpunk.
Was it?
Ladies and gentlemen, that's a crash.
Yeah, that's.
And it just makes me think, hey guys, was it worth pissing about all those years before you had to make a product? Was it worth it?
there's another news article here which I'm going to leave to the very end because it ties into the topic we're talking about tonight, which I think is very important. And the one which I'm going to go to next is governments, as in like the UK government, says video game loot boxes will not be regulated. RIP. Yeah.
Well, they are the Tory government. They wouldn't. They probably.
They probably
want a
get.
piece of the pie.
They probably want a piece of the pie. Yeah, they probably get kickbacks.
Yeah. In which case, I will continue to personally regulate it by not buying any games with loot boxes in them.
Yes.
So the last 2 news articles which I've saved on here are the first one. I think is the biggest one to talk about. I'm going to leave the more positive one to lead into the topic tonight, which is good. But let's deal with perhaps the biggest one that happened over the last couple of months. Can
I interject with a bit of gaming news? A patch has gone live for a game that both you, Ebac, and myself play.
Hitman.
Have you seen the July patch notes for Hitman 3?
I haven't seen the patch notes, no.
Yeah, well, they're giving everybody a free new,
new level.
World. New level. It's like, yes!
Hi, Drifting.
Yeah, hello!
So...
Yeah, who's only recently gone into Hitman 3, a new level is just like, yeah!
Yeah, I'm going to be playing that on VR. I seem to do my VR series of that, and that's probably going to come up soon. So, yes. Hope you're feeling better. Yeah, as Bert says, hope you're feeling better, Drifting.
Yes, indeed.
So let's talk about the less good topic first, but I think it's one that we have to talk about because it is an impacting event to a large amount of people, and that is the overturning of Roe versus Wade. We are, of course, a gaming podcast, but it's also very important to acknowledge that that's going to affect a lot of people, especially within the games industry. And it's nice to see that the games industry in general has had a united front against the decision of the Supreme Court. It was a horrible decision from the Supreme Court. Sorry?
Very stupid.
Very stupid. Yes, I couldn't say it better myself. Also, someone who actually would be impacted by it, making a statement there. I mean, I'm only just a guy, but I just say that it's horrible. It's nice to see the gaming industry having support in place for that, including a lot of people saying that they will continue to have that in their kind of workplace as support. So that's good to hear. It's terrible that it had to happen, but it is what it is.
And I'd just like to say to anybody who is anti-abortion, you don't being anti-abortion is basically saying I am anti having an appendectomy when I need it. An abortion is a medical procedure that is required in some respects. Saying you're against abortion is like saying, I really don't think I should have this appendix out. I should just let it explode in me, because that's what God would have wanted.
Yeah, and to be fair, I've always maintained the belief everything stops past yourself. If you don't believe it, that's fine if you're the one getting it and you decide not to have it. Don't then say, well, other people can't have that decision because I object to it. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And also, people don't understand that by saying that somebody cannot choose by basically saying, hey, consent, like a personal consent over your own body stops at a certain point. This also paves the way of saying that if the government, for example, said to you, you have 2 functioning normal kidneys. My friend, the president up here needs a kidney. You are now, your kidney is ours now, and you can't say, and technically you can't say no, because the government says, well, but somebody else needs it more than you do.
Yeah, it's extreme example. Not saying that she's wrong.
Yeah, and it's basically it's a gateway of saying, you have consent over your body most of
the time,
unless there's a reason why you shouldn't.
The thing I also hate about this is it's also the fact the way this has been done. There is no obvious loophole. Like, say for example, with like, say, if that child that's about to come into the world has XYZ medical conditions, the next line is tough shit.
Yeah.
And you go, but fundamentally the thing is then quality of life. and then it's like it's not going to have one. I read a story. I'm not going to go into it, but it was one of those that you'd go. You apply logic to the situation. That is a very highly valid or highly one of those
Yeah.
ones that you'd go, yeah, it's logical, but you haven't gotten out to it
Yeah.
because of the new law coming into place.
Yeah. May I just add that a 10-year-old girl was being made
Yes,
to
I heard
carry
about this.
a baby
This was
to
a big
term
debate.
because of this.
Yeah,
And she did not have that baby by choice. Let me tell you that. I'm not going to say it because Twitch TOS, but like a 10-year-old girl
It
and some
is
and
awful.
some fucking news outlets were saying she was a woman. You are not a woman at 10 years old. I swear to God.
God, no, I better get my shit together. I better have my shit together when I was 15, let alone 10.
I still don't have my shit together. And I'm 28.
Oh God, God.
I'm not a expert in anatomy.
No.
I'm not a biologist, but I would say like pregnancy at that age usually fatal.
Yes. Yeah, you're completely right, Lemming.
That is outright murder of not allowing this procedure to go through.
And anyone
It doesn't matter if like at 10 you can have your periods come through, and that does mean that your body is quote unquote fertile. Doesn't mean that you're ready to handle that. Your body will not be ready to handle it. You will mentally not be ready to handle that.
I mean, there is a reason why centuries, thousands of years of human civilization coming up and bringing us to where we are today came up with ages of consent, ages of adulthood for things like this to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say that anyone who thinks that this is ridiculous, the idea of like, oh, this is ridiculous, of course the child is important and such and therefore thing. Here's my opinion. Here's my ultimate opinion. You've told that an unborn collection of cells has more rights than a mother. That's like telling me that video game character has more rights than you. It's just as ridiculous and ludicrous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I know you want to move on. I'm just going to quickly draw a line here. It's just like, and everyone's like, oh well, nobody will say that there. At which point does a tumor become sentient? Then should we be able to get rid of cancers? Because if a ball of cells has more rights than me, if a ball of cells has more rights than me, and a dead body has more rights than me, then where the fuck are we going to stop?
All I can say is, all I can suspect is that the Supreme Court, who might remind everybody, the youngest member is just over 50 and the oldest member is older than 70. I've basically been watching too much Monty Python, The Meaning of Life, with the hit song "Every Sperm Is Sacred," which is basically what we're running into, and they're taking it literally.
That's funny because I love that song. It's such a good song.
But it's hitting a bit too close to home.
It is. But the thing is, it's pointing out the whole point of the song is pointing out the ludicrousness of that belief.
Yeah.
But yeah, in only the way the Pythons can. Right. Moving on, because I think it's I felt like we had to talk about that because it's such a big change in news, even if it's not necessarily gaming news. I want to move on to a news topic to introduce the kind of topic of today, which is I never thought I'd hear it. The Sims 4. In the news this month, sexual orientation comes to The Sims 4, and inclusive changes. Now, the irony there basically is that they've given the opportunity for Sims to become straight, because before Sims didn't really care about gender too much, but now you can define orientations for your sim. You can define pronouns for your sim. You can define effectively what your sim is attracted to, and also they even said the idea of like there's romance, but you could just become fuck buddies if you wanted to. So they are literally open up the doors to being very inclusive amongst for the LGBT and also more people who are more open in things. I do love also that they said, that they asked in the FAQ, can I turn this feature off? No. While we try to give players the options to toggle certain gameplay features, LGBTQA plus identities are a fact of life and not a toggle to be switched off. Which is great. And that's the thing, is it's actually... Yes, the pronoun change. The pronoun change is the most interesting thing, Shadow Drifting, because they go so much into like the different like possessive noun and things like that. It's so very fascinating. I love that.
Aren't there neo-pronouns in there as well?
There are, yes. So they've counted for most kind of in terms of language what you would expect to see, and you don't. And also, what's nice is you don't even have a drop down. You type it in.
Oh wow!
From what I remember,
That's pretty neat.
From what I remember, I'm pretty certain it's one where you type it in and it's not a drop down.
Makes sense, because it would just be like, hey, this thing, this integer just goes into these separate places.
Exactly. And you just insert this word into this passage. Yeah, simple as that.
Yeah.
It's very simple. Very, very simple.
Much like what I do in real life.
They did come out and say that unfortunately the gender body types are still there, as there's still two genders. There's still man and there's still woman, and there's still two genders. They did in the Q&A say, like, will there be others? And they said that unfortunately the game, when it was designed around the idea of binary genders, although I imagine if they made a Sims 5, that probably be the first thing that would be sorted, I imagine. In the future,
I'd hope so.
And bravo is what I have to say to that. Because
excellent.
Go on.
No, go ahead.
Well, because that is our topic today. LGBT, well, half of our topic, LGBTQA plus representation in video games, as well as romance options in video games. We're going to be discussing that tonight and giving our examples and our experience through them as a bit of a positive kind of news topic, or positive kind of discussion tonight, because we want to have the show to be positive, positive vibes. And if anything, pride's a time to be pride. We are very inclusive. I am a bi man in a gay relationship. I have a boyfriend, and Shadow, you've also not hid that you are very much part of the spectrum. We've also...
A bi woman, unfortunately not paired up. Used to be, not anymore.
Then we've got straight, and then straight.
Two token straights down here. I mean, over that way.
Yeah, in a bunch of communities I roll in at this point, I'm basically the token straight man.
The token straight man. As in, like, comedy, or
when it comes to comedy, yeah. I am the Blackadder in the terms of idiocy.
Yeah, so we have the token straight man in anime guns flavor, and up here we have the token straight in racing and Marvel
motorsports.
Yes.
I'm gonna correct you on that. Technically, I am bi,
but in a straight relationship at this time. So
yes.
Yeah. You're still bi. You're still bi.
No. The thing is, I
said on a technicality.
I always think it's important. Like I say I'm bi, but I am in a gay relationship. It's like terminology and just language is weird like that. It's
I would probably just say I'm in a relationship with a person.
That's fair.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. The relation.
Yeah. That's it's just how I. That's fine. It's how I clarify to someone, like, I'm in a relationship, but I'm in a relationship with a guy. It's just how I do it.
Yeah.
I'm more sort of do that as kind of a bulldog for my friends, just because they're in a relationship with somebody of the same gender or the opposite gender, that doesn't make them any less bi.
Yes.
Then
Yeah, naturally, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's for me being protective of other people. Then.
No, I agree, and like I say, I just use it for clarification. But so LGBT. LGBTQI plus representation in video games. It's really been a big thing over the last few years. That the kind of culture has really exploded in that representation. where do we think that kind of first started? Because when it started to become more mainstream, because my thinking is perhaps the Mass Effect series or Dragon Age where it
Yes.
started to kind of
I
become
think-
more.
Could be, yeah.
I definitely think it was BioWare that started this ball rolling, because I remember quite early on there was a lot of like, whilst there was I can't remember which came first, Origins or Mass Effect 1, but I remember there was a lot of hoo-ha about
Sex with the alien.
yeah, you could have sex with the alien woman, but two women could do it, sort of thing, and it's just like
Fox News losing their shit as normal.
yeah, so I think it was that time, and also I think Origins must have come later. I can't remember. If somebody wants to correct me in the chat, please feel free. But in Origins, you had two companions who were I'll say bisexual just as a shorthand, but technically they're player sexual. You had Zevran, who was a a elf rogue who went both ways, and Leliana, who could be dated by the female and male warden at that time.
Point of notice: Mass Effect 1 was 2007, Dragon Age Origins 2009. So
Yes, so it was Mass Effect first. Yeah, I think it must have. It must have. I'm pretty sure. Like, I don't know why, but I think in my bones there must have been something LGBT related before Mass Effect.
There
but
was.
I think that was when it was pulled into the fore, and it became a player decision.
The Sims has always had that aspect to it. There's always also been, I think Knights of the Old Republic had a bit of that as well, with a lot of implications. It wasn't really until Mass Effect, around about the middle noughties, where gaming was starting to really become mainstream within culture, that it then started to get national news when Mass Effect released. And oh yes, you could be a female shepherd and you can have sex with a female alien, and they're all females, And it's,
yeah, I think it also. But that kind of thing did cause trouble for its sequel, Mass Effect 2, because there are some characters, like Jack especially, which she mentioned during her dialogue that she goes both ways, both with a man and a woman, but is only romanceable by the male shep. Which why?
We'll get on to that.
Yeah, and also the one that I'm always constantly salty about, and Elle's heard me go over about this several times now. The one where Tally's just like, oh yeah, like it's so like, oh Shepherd, I really like you so much. We could link suits together. But for the femme Shepherd, it's like, oh, but no homo. It's just like.
We'll talk about that, because options in video games. Then we're going to get into an interesting discussion, I think, about orientation within those games and what is right and what's wrong. So we're going to have an interesting discussion about that, I think. But let's kind of go around the table. Anyone else got any ideas of video games when you first seen kind of LGBT stuff come a bit more at the forefront, or even any experiences yourself with that stuff?
The one that instantaneously comes to mind with me is this is going to be embarrassing because I'm stumbling over a game that I play a lot on doing Twitch. Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Because the way that game works, that you can play both a male and female character, effectively the whole game plays the same. So therefore, any character interaction that involves a romance scene can be done either way round.
Oh, see, I've not played Odyssey, so that's quite interesting.
So there's one of the main ones that comes to mind is Alcibiades. He does kind of like portray that kind of side of things in his sort of like dialogue and dress sense. But he's one that you can meet from playing the main storyline. So sometimes it may look. Yeah, I've seen obviously like a YouTube series where they've played male characters and female characters, and I know that those lines do come up because there is specifically, at least I know, one interaction with him which is part of the main quest, that you do have to go through and make an option to whether you go allow it to happen or not to happen, basically. Through the main quest of the story. So, I think on a technicality, because of, like I say, the fact of you can play either a male or female character, and the whole dialogue from the NPCs is effectively the same, regardless of which version of the character you're playing. I think that's obviously also the same with Valhalla, I'm assuming as well, because again, you can play as male and female character.
Presumably, I mean, I've got Valhalla, not actually played too much, quite embarrassingly, actually. But I imagine so. Although I will raise you, we are talking about ancient Greece.
Yeah.
I was going to accept history, yes.
No. Well, no. We know what the Greeks did in that time. We know.
You know why they were using olive oil, right?
Everything and all the time.
Why do you? All I say is a lot of their mythology have a lot of big burly men and big buxom ladies. That's all I'm gonna say.
Mm-hmm. There was a lot of olive oil being used.
When the vast majority of their mythology is entirely there because one deity couldn't keep it in his trousers.
Oh yeah, Zeus was Zeus put it around all over the place.
Yeah.
Didn't he fuck a cow at some point?
I think he did.
Yeah, he once wooed a lady by becoming a bull too. So
yeah, and then she fucked the bull, and then that's how we got the Minotaur.
Yeah, so
he was a cow, as Spurs says in the chat. So yeah,
wow.
All I can say to that is don't have a cow, man.
You went there, so I didn't have to.
Put it this way, like pagan religions were wild. Wild.
But no, another one that comes to mind as well is Apex Legends.
Oh,
because two of the characters are in a female relationship. I was going to say lesbian relationship. It makes no difference which way I phrase it. And because the game has sort of interactable voice lines, sometimes depending on which character you play as, the voice lines between those two characters are a bit more romantically entwined than with other characters, if that makes sense. And it wasn't until I've been playing the game for a while, and then my partner pointed out, and I went, oh. But it's because it's not normally, it's one specific, it's two specific character interactions that, it's not very often. It's obviously going to happen when it's a, 2 or 3 man team. You need those two specific characters to be on the same team. It's, just like, when I heard about it, I was like, oh, the more you know.
There's also something I really like, and that is when there's the shipping that goes on with the fans. That then kind of spills into kind of the actual game. Like, isn't there something going on in Overwatch between a couple of the male characters that is kind of semi-canon or something? I think it's I don't know. I don't play Overwatch, so I don't know.
I know there was something between the cowboy whose new name.
I don't know. I can't remember the name. And it was with the archer, isn't it, or something like that?
Hanzo, I think.
Hanzo and Cassidy, I think so.
Yeah. I remember there being a lot of fan fiction about that. I have been on the Tumblr. I have seen some shit.
I want to point out, when isn't there fan fiction like that?
True, but the thing is that it's different from when it, that is. It's different when one person's got that opinion. It's different when it becomes very prevalent in the community that they're together. Like, that is like everywhere I look, there's stuff about Hanzo and Cassidy being together.
Yeah, it's very common for there to be a lot of shipping that goes on in the fandom, but very rare for the fandom to bleed back into the main source material. Probably for the best sometimes, but that's a completely different topic that we're not going to get into.
Video game fans are so cringe.
Highlighting from the topic from the chat, Drifting Light. I guess for me, the game that did put it more at the forefront is The Walking Dead. It starts with subtle options in season 3, and in season 4, you as Clementine can pick between Louise and Violet. Okay, well, yeah.
I do like. I do have my own. I do have my own sort of thing with LGBT relationships because I some background on myself. I've been kind of figuring out my orientation for quite some time, and I was in a heterosexual relationship for quite some time, and when I first started to really think about LGBT relationships was in the Old Republic, Star Wars: The Old Republic MMO, when for me that was the first time I touched a BioWare game, a proper BioWare game with this kind of relationship. It's not as there's not any LGBT. There wasn't really that much LGBT relationships at the start of the Old Republic. I mean, you could maybe kind of do with somebody of the same sex, maybe sort of like squinty eyes kind of thing, but it was mostly het relationships. However, there came a point when I encountered, it must have been Mass Effect, I think. It when I started to really I still stayed in a lot of heterosexual relationships, even in romanced games. A lot of the time, I tend to be drawn to the male characters. But in doing so, I started to get feelings for the female characters. Tally was the first one, and then another time another time it would be I can't. I'm trying to I can't remember who it was in Dragon Age. I think it must have been Isabella in Dragon Age 2, where that was the first time I actually had a romance with a female character. I was like, all right, I kind of like this. And then there was Dragon Age Inquisition, where I fell head over heels for Cassandra Pendergast, and then got very salty that I couldn't actually date her. But that was also the first time I used a mod in order to do that. And I think in doing that, as sort of exploring my sexuality at the same time as it being in video games, and also like with outside influences with Tumblr and stuff like that, that I sort of very slowly came into my sexuality in a way, and sort of it's probably the reason why I am so loudly and so loudly bisexual kind of thing, is just like I'm finally here. I'm finally proud of myself. I'm finally confident to say, "Hey, I am a bi person. This is who I am," kind of thing. And you could probably say like, "Hey, so is that why your relationship broke down?" It's just like, no, but possibly one of the many things. But yeah.
What about yourself, Lemming? Because you're going to be very quiet throughout this.
I'm going to be very quiet throughout this entire thing in general, but
yeah, you're not the
only the Mass Effect, only really. Mass Effect has been my only real view into it. Echoing things before. I did specifically I usually go with the male ship because that's me. I'm a guy. He's a guy. I get to live in his shoes for the 90, 100 hours plus that I play the Mass Effect series. But I did specifically make a femship run back in the day when I played them for hundreds of hours each and had the time to do so.
Oh God!
I specifically ran a femship to go for the little cat boy, Garrus, the alien lizard cat boy, best boy.
I must be the only person here who doesn't romance Garrus and doesn't like doing it.
Maybe, but that's the only. It's like, yep, I'm playing the female character. That's fine, cool, done. But beyond that, I just need to say shout out to Dream Daddy.
Yes.
Just a game I own, have never installed, will never play, but I bought it just to support.
Not just that. Dream Daddy is a great game, and also just those dating games in general, like Monster Camp and things, where it's like we don't care what fucking gender you are. It's,
Yeah, you find that the dating games really, really progressive. They really go for it, kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, because the whole point is to date, and if you're locked up for options, what's the point?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's most of the game, and that is actually an interesting kind of segue into the topic, which I kind of a side topic I want to talk about, which is orientation in games and the way games display relationships. Shadow touched on it, and I'm going to touch on it as well because when I play video games, I sometimes go male character, I sometimes go female character. Depends on my mood at the time. When I was first starting, I wanted to go female for my run in Mass Effect. Then I discovered that you could only romance Tali as a male shepherd. And that kind of forced my hand to then go a male run. And it got me thinking in video games because should video game characters within this world, and I want to preface this, Chad, that I don't think there's a right and wrong answer to this. I think that there's simply whatever the developer wants to do, and there are pros and cons to both. What do people think about the idea that video game characters shouldn't have orientations? The point of them is to be player orientated, so that if the player wants to romance them, they can. But think of it this way. But then that's not very realistic because in the real world, people do have orientations. My argument with that is that, but then you're the main character. You know, it's your story almost. You're kind of being complicit in creating this storyline. So shouldn't you have an arbitrary choice over like the characters that you can pursue? What are people feeling about that? Like, should characters have orientation, or should there be restrictions about who you can romance, or should it be like, if they're a part of your party, then that anyone's fair game? Discussion.
Yeah, I'll take. I have a lot of opinions about this, so I'm gonna take a little bit of a backseat, but let if the other two have anything to say.
Yeah, my main thoughts on it are entirely depending on what style of, like, how free you are, how open the world is, how intricate the party system is in the game you're playing. For example, if you're playing a bog standard first person shooter with a linear story, I'm expecting a linear story. I want the story the person who created the game has to tell us. If there's a love interest, great. It's going to be the love interest that they write for their character.
Oh yeah.
It'd be nice if it would be something that the majority of people could get behind, because it's a first-person shooter. You are supposed to be represented in the character, but at the same time, it's a linear game. There's not any choice there. But the more you open the choices, the more there should be scope for you to have the choices.
Mm-hmm.
If you get what I'm saying here. So something like, that's still mostly linear, but has the open choices like a Mass Effect game, should have, to a point, more options.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be realistic. I'm not suggesting like Call of Duty should have romance options in its campaign. The point is that a linear story where there's a very kind of very very dogmatic to script and such, I fully understandable. I'm just talking about like in those in games like let's use Mass Effect as like the kind of the measuring stick. In Mass Effect,
role-playing games.
Yeah, role-playing games.
Yeah.
In Mass Effect, you have characters who do have orientations, but that ends up being very restrictive to you as a player. If you then like, well, I like this character, I want to romance them, but I can't because I'm not the right gender.
Yeah, but that's all down to how the story would be affected by that. If the character interplay and romance options actually affect how your characters are going to go forward, then I would prefer them to be written in a specific way, to go a specific way under that. But if it was a fully open world roleplay game such as Skyrim, go with anybody. Everyone should be available.
Mm-hmm. I think
it's all down to how the actual plot and story and characters are written.
Shadow?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think with this, it's more a case of, I'm of the opinion that it depends on how the character's sexuality impacts their own story, and the story that's being told. I'm going to use the example of Dorian Pavus in Dragon Age Inquisition. His sexuality, him being gay, is a fundamental part of his character development. The reason why he's with the Inquisition is because of his orientation. He even has a quest line. He has a character quest line where he opens up to your character and tells you that his father tried to make him straight with blood magic, and the reason that's why he's with you guys. It's because of all this nonsense. Like, that's when I think that character, like, that's when his sexuality is. I don't think that should be changed. Not even with mods.
It's a key cornerstone of the character.
Yes.
Yeah. I like. Yeah.
And also I see that, but I can see people saying, well, not every character who happens to be LGBT should be like constrained to like they should say, well, their sexuality shouldn't like be the whole crux of what their story rests on, and I accept that. It's more a case of how much does it impact the story, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Like, if there's going
how
to be
much does an option like that change? How much of that decision changes the whole background of the story? Because say that using that example, that fundamentally changes his whole stick, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, in my opinion, it's like, if the only thing that's going to change is the character dialogue, in like, you've got a character that's more, that's going to use pet names towards you, or they're going to be sweet on you, maybe they give you a gift or two, or such like, then I think, personally, I think they should be player sexual. That they're because because if they're player sexual, even if you don't romance them, you can just think that, oh, they're ace, oh, maybe they're gay and they just don't want to interact with my character, or maybe they're straight, depending on what your gender is. But if it does have a fundamental impact, like, if you can if something's changed, like, for example, if you romance a character and they sort of come more into the fore, like I'll take Mass Effect 3, where if you romance a character during the Citadel DLC, they'll turn up to save your shepherd, like, as the first person who comes to your aid, kind of thing. If it's something like that, then I can kind of understand, like, okay, yeah, maybe they have sexualities. The problem is, it as El points out, and as I've moaned about several times, like, it's difficult when you want to romance somebody, but you can't because there's that your gender isn't correct.
Especially in role-playing games where the whole point is you make your character, and it's like, I can craft my perfect character, but I can't craft the story because I can't go with who I want to go to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I think the problem here is we're pushing up against realism and
yes,
video game logic at the same time, and I will never be able to disentangle the two, because it's more realistic to have people who
have
orientations.
Who have
different sexualities. They might just not be interested in you, even if you are of the same gender and you're the same orientation. They might just not be interested in you. But it also pushes up against the game aspect, where it's like,
this is your fantasy. This is your fantasy. This is your story. This is
this is your fantasy, and if you want to, you can get a mod and you can change things, kind of thing. And I think I come from I think it's more what you want to get out of this game, out of the game you're playing. It's just like, if you want to play a fantasy, then if you use the video game and you twist it, you turn it, you use the way it's to get where you want to go. But if you don't want that, if you just want to experience the story, then you don't. But
that's kind of what drifting. That's kind of what Shadow is saying, is that Shadow veers in the idea of like they should be player sexual unless their sexuality is a key aspect of their backstory. The point where it would make no sense for them to then be able to be romanceable by yourself, such as the example that you gave, where the character is gay and his father attempted to turn him straight.
And also, and also, if the story kind of uses sexuality as like a way to develop the main story kind of thing, because you can use character sexualities to sort of create contrast in a story. Like if you're trying to tell like a story about prejudice and stuff like that, you can use that, and that's when that becomes important. But if it's just on the side, like I'll take the example of Divinity Original Sin 2, which is a great game. If you like CRPGs, then I would recommend that.
You really are plugging all these games tonight. Well done, Shadow.
but
You get your check in the post, obviously.
God, I wish. God, I wish. But the romance for that is so very ancillary, like right out the edge kind of thing. It's just like nobody like that. I mean, you can fuck a skeleton. It's so like it's you get your own sort of romance scenes and stuff like that, but it's just so ancillary. If you don't want to romance them, that's completely fine. Like the game doesn't give a shit at all. But
Are you saying you can get boned?
Yes.
Oh, you read that.
Sorry,
You're taking my whole stick away from me. Thank you, El.
Sorry, buddy. I saw an opening.
Yeah, but the thing is,
so did he.
The thing is, you can be a skeleton. You can play as a skeleton and fuck the other skeleton and the other characters as well, if you wish. But what I'm trying to say with that is like the romance to that is very ancillary. Like it doesn't, like it's got no link into the main story at all or anything. It's just like, hey, do you want to bone down with a person? Then yeah, you can bone down with a person kind of thing. And that's when I think that, you know, it should be player sexual. It is player sexual. It doesn't give a shit. It's just like, yeah, right, if you want to fuck somebody, you want to fuck somebody. And I mean, I think there's also an argument to say, well, why is that even in the game in the first place then? It's just like, guys, it's a romance. It's a role playing game, and you form bonds with your companions. Like some people just want to watch the bed sheets burn, you know.
and then you get to Saints Row 4.
Yes.
Oh.
Saints Row 4 was such a good game. I loved how they played that.
Before we get on Saints Row, I think we should talk. We should talk about Saints Row. Daughter, do you have any examples yourself? Because we've had Shadow talk, we've had Lemmy talk. Do you have any more like yourself to share, or your own thoughts?
My always thought about, like, when we were talking about this was like, I'm going to go back to using the Assassin's Creed example, because obviously, as I said earlier, it's the whole thing is you could play as either a male or female character, and the romances go exactly the same way. And there's part of me that was like, when I first started playing the game, when I was at the point of obviously my character thought is, do I just play the male side of things because I'm a guy, or do I play the female character because I want to play the female character? And obviously, the answer to that is I play the female character because I want to play the female character. And also, I can then just, if anyone ever questions me, I can turn around and go, historically, while the men were at war, the women had to protect themselves. That is the counterpoint to anything in that. So it's like,
I would not want to fight a woman from ancient Greece or ancient Viking times. No, I'd be eviscerated.
Yeah, if I like to think that if a woman gets a sword, you don't really want to fight her.
Ooh.
Oh no.
Case in point.
Case in point. Yeah, I was going to say case in point. But when I first started playing that, I was like, it's also actually ironic I'm saying this, bearing in mind of our RPG, which is next weekend.
This Sunday.
This coming weekend.
This Sunday. This Sunday at noon BST on this channel.
I'm sure. I'm sure the plug money will be in the post. Thank you, El. I just thought, obviously, the fact, obviously, I'm playing a female character in that as well, which I think because I've played a male character for quite a while, that's probably what made me think. It wasn't necessarily that. It was just I just thought I'll just play a female character because you know, it's something just stuck when I wrote the character's backstory. You know, it's one of those
Mhm.
things, and say I'm definitely interested to see how like that character may go forwards because you know very early days. It's going to be interesting to see how that all works itself out, and you know I would say I haven't probably had obviously say anywhere near as far experiences like romances like like what you're talking about in video games, and say it's only the odd one or two things that I've come across, and say one of them by design is the fact if you can play a male or female character, and this with the way that the dialogue conversations are exactly the same, it doesn't matter whether you play a male or female character. You still get effectively the same lines, potentially the same romance options. There may be one or two that it's very specifically you can't, but it doesn't stop the question in the main quest line, which I think that's the fundamental thing is you can't or you shouldn't be able to stop that as an option in the main quest line when you've got the ability to to choose either gender. It shouldn't be anything like that stops it fundamentally in that way, because that would just be you know you're playing one gender, everyone's playing the one gender because you can't get past a certain point in the campaign. But it's definitely something that's obviously an interesting topic. The fact of like you were saying earlier with Sims, that's obviously good case in point that when has that been rolled out yet, or is that update that's already or that's pending, or is it?
Yeah, I believe
It's
that.
already in.
Yeah,
I
that
can't
update's already
remember.
in. I think the update's already in at this point. I wouldn't know exactly, but I'll check the article again. But I know that it was a couple of weeks ago. It was posted, and it was coming very soon. So,
But that's obviously a very very good case in point is like that, and it's it's definitely an interesting talking point, and like I say, because of the different ways you can you come across it. It's not just like one specific. I suppose it's more RPG genre more than anything else. If you were to like put your finger on it, you'd expect it more like an RPG kind of style style game, I suppose. But
role
having
playing
those options in different genres is also a nice thing as well, I think.
role playing games are kind of the key point where a lot of representation comes in because you are very much playing a role. That's the name of the game. That's why you tend to get more options in that. In any other circumstances, usually like a binary choice, a bit like The Walking Dead, like as Drifting was talking about in the chat, where it's a binary choice between one male or one female kind of option, which is better than no choice. But doesn't mean there has to be a choice. So like as I say, I'm not expecting there to be romance options or storyline like that in like Call of Duty or anything like that. As a bit of a ridiculous kind of thought, because then the point of those games is not about that. It's about shoot, shoot, bang, bang. I'm pretty sure romance options would have no impact on Tarkov if Lemming would be playing that.
I mean, there is a like sort of romance going between two of the characters, but you never actually see them face to face because there is one female character in the entire game.
That's rough. Let's talk about Saints Row then, because if there's a series that has really nailed the idea of like, you know what, just be who the fuck you want to be, it's that game. And I love GTA, I adore GTA, but they still are maintaining the idea of like binary male, female. But then in Saints Row, it's like, hey, you're a dude. You want to wear a dress? You want to wear a bra? You want to wear? Yeah, sure. You're a woman. You want to wear nothing? Sure. You want to have both breasts and a dick? Sure. Why not?
Yeah. And I do love that Saints Row is just like, oh, so you're bored of being a guy and you want to be a woman? Sure, whatever.
Sure, whatever. Yes, just change it. And that's the thing. I really wish more games would take this idea of like, do you know what? Everything is just a bit fluid and possible. And I was having a discussion yesterday because one of the few MMOs I play is Star Trek Online. And I created my character way back during the beta days. We're talking 13 years ago now. And I've only got one character. I don't have alts. I got one character, and they are tuned. Like they are tuned to the max. I have a load of ships that I've collected. I have an armada. I could run an entire sector myself with the ships I've got. But the
Still chasing that high in Sea of Thieves as well.
But
all I'm gonna say, what is it with you and ship-based flight games?
what can I say? But what I will say is the problem with that is I've changed a lot in the last 13 years. And if I'd made a character now, I probably would have like a female character. And I probably wouldn't have a Katie. I'd probably go like Vulcan or something. But I can't. Because I'm now fixed with the choice that I had right at the start, where I'm female and I'm male and a Catian, and I can't change that. And that's a shame. Because if I wanted to do that, I basically have to start from scratch. And people say, "Oh yeah, but you've got all these accelerators you could buy to get up to level." And that's not the point. Some of the ships I've got are rare drops that you can't replace. We can't replace them.
Oh yeah, no, that is the big bugbear. It's not the, it's different. Say for example, you take Assassin's Creed as the thing. Yeah, okay, you got to go through the whole quest line, but it's the, you wouldn't necessarily have the same gear or the same things. It's then like, you could have spent hundreds and thousands worth of pounds on one account. So then effectively say, well, the only chance I've got of getting that is to do the same again.
Yeah.
That's why I've never really played my US WoW account. I apologize, Bree and Celicrus. I know you got that for me in good faith, but I just think of all the stuff I have on my EU account that I'd have to re-get on my North American one. I can't, because I've got mounts that are rare drops. I've got anniversary stuff that I'm never getting again. It's just like
yeah, that's such a shame. And I think that I'm glad that we tend to be moving away from this idea of there's gender in games and more like, oh, there are body types in these games. And the idea of like, oh, you can change any time. Like Saints Row, the new one that's coming out, has given an indication like you could just change anything about yourself whenever you want. Who gives a shit?
You say that, it just reminds me of a game that I've recently been playing. I actually I didn't mention this exact instance, but I brought the game up last time we were actually at a group call, Arcade-geddon. Because the characters are effectively androids. When you make your choices on clothing, you can effectively be male or female. Which is like, that's an interesting way of doing it. But no, when you were saying that, is like, when you said body, you say body types, I was like, that's actually a good case in point.
Yeah, there's been data mining in the current WoW expansion alpha that shows that the male and female bodies have now become body 1 and body 2. Whether it'll make it over to live, we don't know, but we're hoping.
Jeffrey says, to be honest, I do appreciate that in Skyrim that you can change things with that person in the Thieves Guild. I don't know what you're talking about, because I have to admit, it's been a while since I played Skyrim, if I'm honest. But yeah, it's nice when games give you that option to make those changes. And it's a shame when they don't provide a way.
Yeah, no, I definitely see a lot of games now, especially MMOs, like really pushing towards customization post the character creation screen, which is really good, and I think a lot of people appreciate that, especially like because you can make a mistake in character creation and be like, oh no, I don't like that. And then you just want to tweak. Sometimes you just want to tweak a few things so it looks really nice, and other times it's like, I don't want to be this race anymore. Fuck this. And it's just like you want to like transmog is also a thing. Like you just want to look. Some people just want to look good, okay? Like even if the looking good is just like I want to stare at a sexy player ass for like all of my game time, that's valid. If you want to play if you're a guy and you want to play if you're a het guy and you want to play a female character because you want something nice to stare at, like you're valid, dude. You're very valid.
I have a couple of friends whose entire reasons for playing female characters in like Fallout and all of those style of games was simply because if I'm staring at something for like 100+ hours, I want it to be something I like looking at.
That's fair. That's
was-
totally fair. I
That
think
was
I think
also effectively the same case in point that I had with my Assassin's Creed choices, because the fact of, I've played 100 odd plus hours with Cassandra, that, was that part of my reason? It's like, no, that wasn't actually part of my reasoning. And I would have, anyone who would have brought that up, I would have used that as my, I would have, had that happy debate and gone, no, that's not necessarily a reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see that argument both ways, as the fact of, a game like that, say, because of, the amount of hours you're going to be putting into the game, ideally you want something that you can enjoy playing as a character for whatever reason that may be. And I think fundamentally, that's a fair and valid choice. It's one of those things. But I think we're going to go back to the same point, as long as those sort of choices and those things aren't fundamentally, I'm going to use the word law very carefully, law breaking in terms of, the whole storyline and progression of the game. I think everything should sort of kind of be fair game to
Mhm.
some sort of point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I personally think that people choosing a different character, like a character that is a different gender to them, is a topic for another thing, and I think a very interesting one. But
I don't know what we're talking. I personally don't know what we're talking about, but I'd love to kind of, if you guys want to run out this topic in the future, I'd love to kind of be involved in that.
I think it would be less of a kind of, this is where we're going to find a conclusion kind of thing, and more a case of just like, hey, I think it'd just be interesting to see, because I think everybody plays a character a little bit differently, because depending on the game, like I run a completely different character to, I think, what other people might, because I tend as I won't go. I'll just be very brief here, but like each one of my MMO characters is their own separate character. I'm not in them, kind of thing. But in other respects, I am that character. In other respects, it's complicated. I'll get onto that another time if we bring this topic back around again.
No, I think it's good to discuss. In fact, I was going to talk a little bit about RPGs, and as in like tabletop RPGs a little bit as well, because that's where a lot of this kind of stuff kind of flourishes, where people kind of are allowed to, in RPGs, you can literally romance anyone, as long as you're comfortable with flirting with your GM,
and also your players,
and with your players, yeah.
At the table.
Yeah, remember to ask consent if you're doing a player romance, guys. Don't be weird about it. Don't be weird
Don't
about
be weird
it. I
about
swear
it.
to God, don't.
Yeah, that's the thing. Consent is important when it's another player involved, but also I think we've seen a big kind of shift in the RPG world lately. It's not really LGBTQ plus I plus related, but I think it's talk about inclusivity. So I want to kind of just quickly touch on it. Did anyone hear about what D&D said, or Wizards of the Coast, who published D&D, said a couple of years ago, back in 2020?
Was this about lineages?
Nope.
Or...
Yes, about kind of backgrounds, lineages, and the idea that they want to try and show that races within these cultures are just as culturally diverse and as distinct as we are.
yes.
But the idea that because the stereotype is orcs, bad, evil, but that's not all.
All orcs have been chaotic evil in the RPG. When that's that, like, in my opinion, alignment should be guides, not the be all end all. Because every time I fucking see like, all orcs are chaotic evil, it's just like, I'm going to hit you with a mallet kind of thing. Like, ugh.
I couldn't help it, but you're freezing there, Shadow. Put Pirates of the Caribbean in my head.
If you believe
More
all orcs are
guidelines rather
chaotic,
than rules.
if you believe all orcs are chaotic evil, you need to read more Pratchett.
Yes, or play a little bit of Warcraft 3, please. Please, God, play some Warcraft 3.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is, to be fair, I think it's used a lot by GMs as like shorthand. because of course it's it's easy kind of put on a voice and like give an idea of like, oh well, dwarves kind of talk like this, and and all that, and it gives you a bit shy. It's like, oh, they're small drunk Scottish guys, and it's like it gives you an aspect, but that's not all what and it gives you like a brush to work with, but also it's a very wide brush and doesn't deal with the fine details.
Yeah, exactly.
Drifting said, you go on.
And also sometimes people just want to play like a character that breaks the norm, or is just like, hey, I want to play as, I don't know, I want to play as a Goliath, as a big muscly man, but is also I don't know, a cleric. A cleric that is soft and gentle and stuff like that.
That's the whole point of the player character. Is the player character you are the exception to the rule almost. I mean,
exactly.
we got Sathari Jedi. We have all kinds of things. Also, Drifting says, well, obviously, I'm a writer and a creative person as a whole. So role playing games to me is just plugs OC out of lineup, yeets into game. Now I'm
oh no, Drifting! I just make a new OC. The game is just like, here, have a new OC, and I'm like, okay.
I know that. Now I'm just reminded of the thing I read from a D&D DM panicking and making an NPC goblin Spanish accented. I don't know. You see, that to me is hilarious.
So cool.
Because suddenly that goblin is very distinct in that universe, and it's memorable from your characters. Because if Shadow, you go up to a Gungan, and if they say "Misa," you're expecting that. You're not expecting to go up to a Gungan and say "Hello." And it's like, and I was born on Coruscant, and they taught me to speak like this.
That's also why, like, the Old Republic, like, really quickly clued into the fact of just like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't race lock certain races, like certain species races. I don't know, they're the same fucking thing. We shouldn't lock them to classes. Let's just, like, if you reach the end of the class storyline with one of these, just open them up to everything. That's how I got a Sith pureblood as a bounty hunter. And my god, I actually made a story behind her and I really liked it, kind of thing. Like, you could have a Sith pureblood Jedi. Who gives a shit? You're having fun. This is a roleplay game. Nobody gives a shit. Just go have fun. Make the cringiest fucking Mary Sue you want. Just have fun, man.
Doctor?
Completely.
No, I love the whole idea you're saying that. I'm just thinking of what Burr's playing.
Well, I was just trying to think of the most kind of, because the thing is, Burr's doing Gungan, but he's doing like menacing Gungan, which is not what you expect. So that's very nice, because again, it's taking something which you would expect and doing it in a different way. So, and that is, it provides variance to the universe, spice of life and such.
Since we're talking about tabletop stuff, I just really on an offbeat channel need to shout out the Offbeat Outlaw channel for his Forever DM videos. They do like YouTube shorts about the Forever DM, the dude who's always the DM, finally getting to do something else. Rigs everything. They're hilarious. I'll link a couple to you afterwards.
Yeah. I've got to watch that. But yeah, and then you get into weird things like in like that continuity and such, relationship about things like droids. If you think about it, animate objects like I think they were pretty quite clear that Lando and L3 were involved in some way in Solo. And I never really considered that, but like really a human and an android? Well, if they love each other, yeah.
I mean, humans will fuck anything.
I mean, I think Lando will fuck everything. Is what it's really what we'd go for. Well, hello.
I thought you were going to go with I thought you were going to say he's got a cape for that.
He might do. Yeah.
In fairness, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind Lando.
Yeah, there's something interesting about Lando. I love voicing Lando whenever he appears in an RPG.
I think, say, from my point of view, on a more simpler level, though, I remember I think it was Rogue One where I noticed it more, is the fact of, I started to take a bit more appreciation for how they were writing droids as characters. Because you think, like, how can people have sort of like feelings, from obviously watching the story play out for droids.
Mm.
That was kind of a really weird aspect. But say for me, like, K2SO, L3, obviously then you've got the main two that always come to mind is 3PO and R2.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, those two are a married couple.
Yes, in all but name.
In all but name.
The amount of times,
Yeah.
the amount of times you don't need R2's, whatever you want to dialogue his changes to it. Just when C3PO's response is like, no, we need to go this way. It's just like, yep, they're at it again.
Yeah, I do love that. That's one of my favorite kind of low key kind of homosexual relationships in media is 3PO and R2, because they're droids, but and people say, oh, they're just friends. Nah, they have like a special bond, even if they're not like. And people say, but they're not fucking each other. No, they're not fucking each other. But that's not the be all end all of a relationship,
Yeah, exactly.
I think episode 7 really proved that fact when R2 eventually woke from his slumber.
Mm.
The nerve, the way that 3PO basically, I can't remember the exact line, but he was like overly ecstatic to actually see him, awake from his slumber.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I always love that, and just the way those two argue, and that to me, whenever I'm trying to replicate them when I'm doing the RPG, I always think of them two bickering, and I then get to nail down 3PO's kind of tone and voice and how he's talking to 3PO.
It's so sweet. I love it.
But yeah, we've kind of gone off topic a little bit from LGBT plus representation in gaming, but I guess media and gaming kind of coalesces in some degree.
Sometimes blow into one.
Yes. I guess it's just representation, just of
well,
genders, sexualities, and even relationships. Because, like, I remember the outer I had to think for a second. The Outer Worlds was actually quite lauded, because I think it was one of the first games to have an asexual character perfectly maybe not perfectly, but no representation is ever perfect, but a asexual character that was romanceable in the game, and her asexuality was not changed or anything. The character just adapted. And because a lot of the time, romance is, I'm going to be blunt, romance is basically say the nice things enough times and eventually they'll put out.
They'll put out, yeah.
Yes.
And occasionally give them a gift.
Yes. And
yes.
So it's very good and very unique to see a character that basically says, "Hey, I'm not interested in the sex stuff. I don't want to do the sex stuff. We just want the emotional connection," kind of thing. And
the companionship.
Yes, exactly. And I quite like that kind of thing. Like, yeah, sure, I do like to see the very awkwardly animated sex scenes that sometimes happen, because Jesus fucking Christ, some sex scenes are just like, what are you doing?
Actually, from that perspective, I'm the opposite. I kind of very much am someone who just prefers the romance side of things and the companionship in that way. I think maybe that way I kind of lean a bit like asexual in that way. But the point is that I just really like seeing people connecting on a level that's not just physical, and that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I just love the, like, I will come out here and say, like, I really love Caden Alenko, and I've romanced him like a lot of times. And the one thing I really like about his romance whole scene dealio in Mass Effect 3 is there is a point in the story where there is a point in the scene with the two of them, Shepard and Caden are, kind of getting in the mood kind of thing, and it's just like you've got the two choices. It's either the hey, let's go fuck on the bed kind of thing. Well, fuck more like roll around in your skivvies, or your shepherd can say, hey, I'm not feeling it, I just want to spend time with you. And it's a completely valid option. And what just happens is your shepherd just sits, because she's straddling him at the time, let's put it that way, and she just gets off his lap, just sits next to him, like puts her head on his chest, and he just wraps his arms around her and just says, okay, that's fine, I'll stay here as long as you want. And the result is pretty much the same, as in you don't get the sex scene, but you wake up a little later in bed with him kind of thing, because like implying that they're sleeping together kind of thing. And I just like the fact that you can choose that, because some of the other romances, I think the Garrus one, if you turn him down from the sex scene, he's just like, I'm just gonna fuck off. And it's just like, what? I just prefer, like, if you romance a character, I think
there's options within that romance.
Yeah, it's just like, hey, maybe I want to do the sideways samba, and maybe I just want to cuddle kind of thing. Like
I actually, because that's to me, I really liked the scene where you're shooting shit on the Citadel with Garrus.
Yeah.
And that is, of course, a scene with friends. But I'd love it if there's more stuff like that in the game, where you can do more stuff with them because you are involved with them. Not just, the more deeper your relationship goes with them, the more you can do with them. And you can have just the sex if you want to, or you can get like, yeah, let's go. Like, do we really have to have sex? Why don't we go and shoot some shit? Let's
exactly.
Or Garrus, I don't really feel like sex. Why don't we go and dish out some vigilante justice?
Yeah, exactly. Because like that could be a thing with Caden. It's just like, hey, I don't really feel like that. Shall we just go get a meal? Shall we just go get a meal at Polo's? It's just like,
I just like the idea of rocking up to Garrus and being like, hey, we're not Archangel tonight.
But that's also the way that's also coming across as a very much a on-off switch. Either you want it to happen or not, and then it's not like you've got a we'll come back to it later kind of thing. Like, you've not got that kind of like that sort of like dip where you can sort of like choose it on your own free will. It's either it has to happen or it doesn't.
I think it's I think it's also an idea that there's the idea that having a romantic relationship in a game immediately means sex, when that's not it. I really want to be like, yes, there's an aspect of that, but like I want to have just a deep that's why I really like the Citadel DLC, because like it's me with me crew, my mates, having a good old time, and watching them get shit faced at a party and having a proper romp,
and like. Sorry, Elle.
No, please, because that's the thing, is it's more than just, it's about having connections with these characters.
Yeah. Like for the if you're romancing Caden, you go on his date for the Citadel thing. Like, he cooks you dinner kind of thing. In the friend version of that, it's really funny because Shepard's just like, hey, don't poison your superior officer kind of thing, and the two are just razzing each other. It's quite funny. But in the Citadel DLC for a romance Caden, it's a lot more flirty, a heck lot more flirty kind of thing. And afterwards, you're sitting on the couch together, and it's basically like, hey, what do you want to do? And it's basically a case of, hey, do you want to just sit here and just chill do you want to just sit here and chill, or do you want to go and burn off those calories kind of thing? And I just like the option, because like, maybe you just want to sit down and chill, but maybe you want to go upstairs and do the do,
Yeah, that's the thing, is providing options in those relationships as well, because they're very good at providing those romantic options in terms of who do you want to get into a relationship with. Then it's like, okay, but then that seems to be the only direction it leads into just sex. So I'm like, no, I can't be having an evening where the two are just nattering. It's like, oh yeah, it reminds me of the scene in Star Wars. It's like, I've never seen Star Wars. Like, what? Leading to a very kind of a funny scene of like, how can you never, and then like,
isn't there there like a date scene for Tally where she talks about fleeting for Taylor?
Yeah.
And Shepard's like, I've never seen
Never
it. She's like,
seen it.
"What?"
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a very relatable thing within, and so I think that's the thing is it's designed to kind of find very relatable aspects to these characters that you can engage with, and not just as romance options, but like it'd be nice if there's not just romance options, but the idea of like there's an option of like there's a friend option, and then there's just a case of and some will say, well, isn't that just doing the loyalty mission? Yes and no. That's showing that you're willing to do loyal to them as a commanding officer and not as well as a friend. But it'd be nice if you could like choose how deep the relationship goes. Are they just a crew member, or are they a friend? Are they a partner? That's the thing.
Yeah, I think they were doing something like that in Mass Effect Andromeda, just a little bit. Like you got some friend scenes that were actually really sweet. I do remember Cora's one where it was some I can't remember the details about it, but it was something about growing new life on one of the planets, and I thought that was very sweet and very very sweet, even though I wasn't romancing her at the time, kind of thing.
Some of those I so love like personal moments like that, like getting drunk with Chuck was. It's such a memorable scene for me.
Oh my god, that's so good. Yeah,
because it's just like me and the doctor breaking out some brand of illegal whiskey that they got stashed away, just having a chat and talking shit.
Yeah.
Fun fact: most actual military vessels tend to have some sort of still on board, hidden away somewhere.
That doesn't surprise me.
But yeah, and that's the thing is, games, especially role-playing games, and RPG, starting to kind of nail the whole idea of like personal relationships. Because that's the thing is, okay, I just had a thought. Now I'm gonna be careful the way I say this because I don't want to offend anyone. Isn't it that JRPGs tend to have like fixed kind of relationships, whereas Western RPGs tend to be a bit more open? I'm just trying to think. Is there
How do you mean?
Not a clue.
Like clearly in Final Fantasy VII, Aerith is considered like a very love interest for Cloud at first, then it moves on to kind of like Tifa and such. But you don't have a choice in that. That's kind of defined by the story. Is what it is. Whereas more Western stuff, like Mass Effect and such, tends to be a bit more like, well, you have a choice of who you can go with, because it's not part of like the overarching story.
I don't have enough. I don't have enough experience to say one way or the other.
Yeah, because Yakuza must have done something.
Yeah. I'm for the JRPG that I used to play a lot, Golden Sun. Romance wasn't really a thing, but it did kind of. Oh, we lost Doctor again. It did kind of sort of push you in a direction of some people. It didn't really give a shit, but it was kind of like shuffling towards a thing. But what I do know is because in Stardew Valley you've got well, actually no, in Harvest Moon before Stardew Valley, you of course had the bachelors and stuff like that. You were a bachelor farmer. You were a male farmer, and you had a choice of bachelorettes kind of thing. And now there's one thing that I know about JRPGs, or it just seems to be games made by Japanese developers. It's very heterosexual. Very heterosexual. I have never seen a Harvest Moon which has let you, as a man, date a man or a woman date a woman. Chat can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never seen a Harvest Moon allow for a same sex thing. Never. And it's something I notice with JRPGs. They're very, very like it's just Japanese developers. They're very strange about it. They will not entertain same sex. I think Tomodachi Life had some. I think there was some. I don't think it was a homosexual relationship, but some guys could be like, "Hey, hey," in the strange way that me's do. But they stopped them from becoming partners or something. And I remember there was a big hoo-ha about that. Rightly so, because we exist. Gay people exist. I'm sorry, we're not going away. We never will. But that's what I've noticed is Western games tend to be more relaxed about LGBT stuff. They can be very weird about it at times, but definitely Japanese games are very very heteros, very very het. It's very clear in them, and it's just like, ugh.
Well, the culture is very different over there. I mean, I was talking. I remember Kay, a good friend of the channel. They were talking to us about how Phoenix and Edgeworth from the Ace Attorney series very much inspired by yaoi kind of stuff. And there's some underlining text in that goes on. I mean, nothing overt has been shown in the series because nothing overt has been shown, but there's like an under textual comment of that.
You can fucking sense it. You can look at those two and just like, yeah, getting the gay vibes of these two.
Whereas I never picked up on that, and I'm gay, so what does that say about me? I guess.
Oh, honey, I've missed like there was one bit where they were, I think in Rogue One they were like, a lot of fan fiction was between Blaze and Chirrut, and they were like, these two are husbands, and I was like, I thought they were brothers. I legit thought they were brothers. I didn't know that was there sexual tension between them? What?
I don't think they were sexual. When I saw that, I just thought that they were like, because now that I think about it, it's like, yeah, they were like really tight as people.
Yeah.
And it's never explained.
Yeah,
No.
I always thought they were brothers. They were so close. I thought they were blood related, but apparently not. And I'm like, oh, okay. But I will say there was in the Warcraft movie, between Khadga, between Khadga and Lothar, like, they're not supposed to be together, but the fucking gay vibes off the two of them. I'm like, are you two fucking? Are you two fucking? There's a whole scene where like Khadga gets like thrown on the table by Lothar and pinned down with like a compass or something, and it's like, guys, this is a PG. Was it a PG movie? It's just like, guys. What the fuck?
I mean, personally, I think we've kind of tackled the topic a lot tonight, and it's really nice to kind of talk about LGBTQ representation in the game. I hope it continues on.
Yes, I agree.
I will be keeping an eye on Hogwarts Legacy when that comes out around its release, and see what kind of options have been put in there to spite someone, shall we say? And
Ooh.
yeah, and
After you use that word,
This
that's why
character is
Black Widow is up.
This character's trans, and this character's trans, and this character's trans. There's nothing you could do about it, Rolling. Haha.
I'm looking forward to that.
Bitch.
I want to thank everyone who's been here on the discussion. I want to thank Shadow, Lemming, and Doctor for being part of this. And we're not going to be gone we're going to be gone for another month because, of course, the next time we'll be on is Tuesday the 30th. We've not really thought of a topic for that, but if you've got any suggestions out there in the verse, we'll shoot them our way and we'll discuss. Or even people here who want to have a topic in mind, we can look at that time. I thought the idea of doing Pride and LGBTQI plus and A+ video games was a fantastic idea, especially around the theming of the month and it being Pride. Brilliant choice, and a very wholesome topic as well. And I think we've had a nice discussion.
Nice to be able to talk something nice about
nice. Yeah, and generally the whole point of us making this.
I think the fact of what you changed the whole amount of time at the start, and we've still gone about the same time we would normally go. I think kind of proves the point on that more than anything else.
Well, the whole point of the show is that we just found that we would just talk about various topics constantly, and
knowing us, we talk about everything all the damn time. That's why we have a podcast for it.
That's why we're here.
So we thought, why don't we just film ourselves? Because some people may be interested in what we have to say and may want to get in on the discussion and present alternative views and ideas, which is important. Yeah. It's important to have your views challenged now and then. Echo chambers are not good things. Right then, everyone.
Just remember to look after yourselves.
Yes, look
Yes.
after yourselves, everyone. We'll be back at the end of August to basically discuss on the next topic and, of course, cover some news very quickly and then, of course, get onto a topic of discussion at that time. I want to thank you. My name's been Eback, joined by Shadow, Lemming, and Doctor. We'll see you all next time. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.